Okay, for start video 2 here, let's keep going on our structures internally in the female's body. Now, I've showed you the vaginal canal. The vagina, it's kind of has several names for different regions, but the opening of the vagina is the external visibly part there in the vulva. But the canal actually leads internal inside of the female's body. And inside the vagina, there is no glands. I was saying the glands here actually empty right there at the vaginal opening at the orifice of the vulva. But internally in the vagina, none of these glands secrete their materials. So there is a phenomenon known in AMP where it's basically a transudation of liquid material or interstitial fluid, but we call it vaginal sweating. And again, this helps with the pH of the vagina because it's usually an acidic pH, which helps the sperm survive longer inside the female's body. It also provides little rivulets of material for once the fibrinogen-like proteins break down and the sperm are freed, that they can swim toward their destination, which is the ovum in the fallopian tube. Now, with the vagina, as we go inside the vagina, and my vagina is constantly falling out too. You can see here that going in the vaginal canal, as you reach internally to the terminal end, you can see it's capped by this narrow neck-like region of the cervix. And so it's this cervix that provides the entryway for the sperm when the female is capable or in a window of fertility. Now, typically this external os, they call it, OS, external os, has a mucus plug in it. But near ovulation, that plug mucus thins and runs out, and so that opens up and allows the sperm a pathway to swim into the uterus, and then they swim through the uterus into the fallopian tubes. And they're either going to swim into the left or the right. Now, there does seem to be a little bit of added bonus. The female body helps the sperm a bit, and kind of almost a muscular pump action with an orgasm. Because typically the uterus lays here on the bladder, kind of like this, putting pressure on it, which is why when dealing with a pregnant female, there's a lot of pressure with that uterus and the baby on her bladder, and why she has to urinate so frequently. But as a female has an orgasm, this uterus kind of stands up, and when it does, it creates this muscular pump action, which helps deliver the ejaculate from the male, the semen, and the sperm on up the fallopian tube. And so this actually helps ensure that more sperm will make the journey or their destination. I quit writing, didn't I? So I'd like you to know the uterus. The function of the uterus is, I guess I didn't even do the function of the vagina. The vagina's function is to receive the penis in intercourse for reproduction purposes. The uterus is the site of development once fertilization has occurred. Now, fertilization typically happens in the fallopian tube in a successful pregnancy. So as the zygote, the single-celled human, once the sperm and the egg unite their genetic material, it becomes a human. And it's this 46 chromosome cell that we call a zygote. But it's going to take almost 24 hours for the first division, but it's going to divide into 2 cells. Now, it's going to continue to do this, but it does it more rapidly as it goes through its divisions. So the divisions start going faster and faster. So we go to a 2-cell stage, a 4-cell stage, an 8-cell, 16, 32, 64. Well, after a while, we get this solid ball of cells. And we used to call that the marula stage. Now they're changing all the names and everything in embryology, but as those cells migrate to the outside of the sphere, it forms a hollow ball. It's not truly hollow because it is fluid filled, but we call that hollow ball stage in embryology. We used to call it the blastula stage. Now we call it the blastocyst. And the blastocyst is the tiny human cluster of cells that will implant into the uterus. So it is this structure, when it's all embryonic stem cells, this is going to burrow down into the endometrial layer. The endometrium is the inside layer of the uterus. This is where the blood nutrient-rich material builds up monthly in preparation for pregnancy. But the blastocyst buries down into this blood nutrient-rich material. Has a couple purposes. One, it helps it hide from the female's immune system till it can call off the female's immune system, letting the female's body know, the mother's body know that she's pregnant. And it does that by secreting a hormone that we call HCG, and it stands for human chorion gonadotropin. And it is this chemical that we use in urine tests for detecting pregnancy. So, believe it or not, these are getting so sensitive, they can do it just a few days after conception. They can detect low enough trace levels of HCG to determine that the female has gotten pregnant. But as the blastocyst hides, it also is absorbing some nutrients. It's used up most of the yolk material that the mother provides in the ovum and her initial production. So now it's going to have to start to have nutrition come from the external embryo or external of the baby. Now, it's initially going to come through that endometrial material, but eventually it's going to begin to grow half of this capillary system, along with the mother growing the other half of this capillary system that we refer to as the placenta. And the placenta spreads out all over the endometrium in the uterus, and that's how the blood supplies are going to come together, exchange materials, but not actually mix the blood of the mother and the child together. Now, I mentioned, I skipped a lot of the layers here. The myometrium is also very important. It's a very thick layer. That's what forms the muscle. Remember, myology is the study of muscle. So the myometrium is the middle layer here. And of course, it's very important, especially when we get to the delivery of the child after 40 weeks with the labor contractions for the childbirth process. I've already talked about them, but you can see them here if I tilt them up a bit. Coming off of each side of the uterus are these horn-like structures or antenna-looking structures that we refer to as the fallopian tubes. Now, fallopian tubes are the old name. It's still used so dang much, we can't hardly get it out of everybody's head. Their modern name are ovarian ducts, because it's much more descriptive of what they do. They connect the ovaries and ductwork down to the uterus. So going with the new name probably is better, but I still tend to use the old name. The fallopian tubes have 4 regions. And again, these 4 regions have different functions. Like if you look out toward the terminal end away from, laterally from the uterus, they get these finger-like projections that kind of surround the ovary, kind of like almost like a baseball glove. But it extends that out so that it ensures when the ovary produces the mature oocyte and ovulation occurs, that it's going to enter the fallopian tube. The fallopian tubes are lined with ciliated cells, and these cilia undulate, which help propel the ovum through the tube so that we do not have implantation occur in the fallopian tube, which would result in an ectopic pregnancy and disastrous results for the developing child. The ovaries, again, have multiple functions, primarily producing the female sex cells or gametes. But it also plays a huge role in the endocrine system with hormones. Again, the hormones that make females feminine and their aspects, some of these come from the ovaries. But lots of hormones involved in the entire reproductive process. Some of the important hormones, and they're not all under the ovaries here, so don't think they're all under the ovaries, but estrogen is one from the ovaries that's very, very important. But we also have many other hormones that are also very important. The one that actually triggers ovulation on day 14 of the cycle is luteinizing hormone. And in fact, if you study luteinizing hormone, if you study the process of ovulation in the ovaries, we know that the scar left after the oocyte ruptures out, almost like a pimple off the surface of the ovary, we call that the corpus or corpora luteum or corpus luteum. Luteum being the same root word as luteinizing hormone. This is also the hormone that will cause your temperature to spike a degree or two on your day of ovulation. So if you want to try to figure out your window of fertility, you know, about 3 days before, 3 days after ovulation, those are about the 6 days that you would want to have lots of sex if you're trying to get pregnant, or not have sex or abstinence if you're trying to avoid pregnancy. Don't use that as a birth control method, because that may not always work for you. And lots of females do have irregularities, to say the least, with their menstrual cycle. We have progesterone. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these things, and so I'm not going to go through all of them. But these are some of the big players in the buildup of the endometrium and the preparation of pregnancy and the menstrual cycle, to triggering ovulation and maturation of the gamete, to the maintenance of the female characteristics and remaining very feminine. Now, typically I go through and hit some stuff on birth control, and I hit some, I go through the cycle, the menstrual cycle with that. I think for this semester where it's on video, I'm going to avoid that and just try to make it a 2-video set for the female reproductive system. But I hope you have a great day, and work hard on that final, and we should all succeed. Anyway, you have a great one. I'm sorry this class went like this. I'd love to have you guys face-to-face all semester. This isn't my favorite way to do it, but we got through it together, and hopefully you're going to come out satisfied with the amount that you learned. Anyway, you guys have a great one. Miss you. Have a great summer. Bye.